The city of Punta Gorda in Central Florida was once listed by Money Magazine as the second best place in America to live. An easygoing paradise known for long, laid-back summer days. But it's not without its nightlife.
So how you doing over there?
Just fine, really, I think.
Another beer?
Surrounding the city is a vast wilderness of tall trees and thick vegetation. The perfect spot for subtropical predators. The kinds of predators who would want to keep their activities very secret.
If you were out there, nobody could ever hear you scream.
In January 1994, two hunters head deep into these woods, known as prime hunting ground for wild hogs. But it may be that hogs aren't the only thing being hunted out here.
There's definitely foul play involved, and something really bad is going on.
An unidentified corpse is found in the Florida wilderness, and it won't be the last.
We had no idea who any of these people were.
The damage to the bodies suggests extreme foul play. Brutal slayings put cops on the trail of a killer who's one step ahead.
It was exactly like watching a shark circle his prey.
To catch him, they'll use every trick in the book and risk the life of one of their own. A residential development goes belly up, leaving the forests around Punta Gorda, Florida, shot through with paved roads to nowhere. These roads give hunters easy access to terrain known as the Hog Trails. And today, they lead Rick Hobbs of the Charlotte County Sheriff's Department to a corpse. Joining him is Jim Myers, a state investigator with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
The most typical things that we deal with here in Charlotte County are generally thefts and burglaries, arguments, things of that nature. We don't have that much in terms of violent crime.
Authorities fear the status quo has just changed. But in trying to determine if this is a case of murder, they face an extreme uphill battle.
Bodies in the state of Florida, especially that and later time of year, they decompose rapidly because of the moisture, the heat. Out in the wooded area, you've got animals, insects, so it doesn't take very long for a body to decompose down to skeletal remains. That can happen within a matter of weeks.
The lack of any clothing or personal effects on the victim heightened police suspicions.
And there was just nothing there, just the body.
At the Charlotte County Morgue, the medical examiner seeks to learn how the victim met his fate.
We logged the remains as a John Doe because we did not know the name. And after documenting all the external evidence, whatever was there in the remains, we performed the autopsy.
There were some indications during the examination of strangulation. They found some possible indications of some ligature marks on the neck and the arms and the legs.
Though exactly what happened is unclear, all signs point to homicide. The next step is to identify the victim, and it won't be easy.
When you have skeletal remains or a body that's found in a remote area with nothing else, you have to go back to the very basics. We had to start from scratch.
We know he's a white male. I believe he was around 5'9", if I remember correctly. He was probably in his late 20s, early 30s, dark hair.
Investigators scour missing persons reports. The corpse's teeth are x-rayed and compared to dental records, but to no avail.
I actually had a partial fingerprint from the victim. That was difficult, though, because it was only a partial print from one finger off the decomposed body. I had that submitted to the automatic fingerprint identification system to see if there was any possible matches on that.
Then the examiner finds an unusual clue, a steel pin lodged in the victim's left leg, and it's marked with a serial number. But in the 1990s, no reliable records were kept of such implants. Having hit a dead end, authorities now turn to a forensic skull reconstructionist. Photographs and measurements of the victim's skull are entered into a computer. The combined sciences of anatomy, osteology, and anthropology are then utilized to create a composite impression of the victim's facial features.
We got composite back for something to show the public, to try to see if anyone recognized this individual.
The composite is circulated through the media, but no one comes forward. After months of intense efforts, police have a victim they still can't identify. But Rick Hobbs keeps trying.
I would physically go in and pull each piece of evidence and examine it. I would go through each lab report to see if there was anything that we may have collected that, for some reason or other, didn't get processed.
But despite his best endeavors, the case eventually goes cold. At least no other bodies have turned up in the time since John Doe was discovered. But all that changes on New Year's Day, 1996.
What do you got there, boy?
When a dog owned by Northport resident Wayne Brown makes a strange discovery.
His dog brought home a human head and was chewing on his front lawn.
The Hog Trails have offered up a second victim. How many more may be out there? Investigation into the mysterious death of a John Doe in Florida has gone cold. No sooner has the case been set aside when another grim discovery is made in a neighboring county. Detective Tom Schwanier of the Northport Police takes the call.
The skull, as it was found in the yard, was missing the lower jaw portion. The upper teeth were intact, and there was a minute amount of flesh still on the skull. The first thing that comes to a detective's mind is where'd it come from? Where's the rest of it? So our first step is to find the rest of the body. It was an area of very few houses, and there was a lot of vacant roads there. We divided the area up into blocks. We had law enforcement officers from several agencies, and what we did is we did block by block grid search.
Days pass with no luck.
I found something.
Then, an officer wanders into an unsearched area.
There was bones, spine, rib cage. There was fleshy skin still on the part of the rib cage and on one of the arms. I believe it was a right arm. We weren't really sure what circumstances we had, but we have to treat any of these scenes as the possible worst case scenario. We called in the FDLE forensics teams to conduct their crime scene search. They put stakes up, and they go over every square inch with a fine-tooth comb to see what exactly is mixed in with the bones and the remains. And then they search the ground underneath all the remains, possible jewelry, bullets. There's no end to what may be of evidentiary value at one of these scenes. And we did find a lower jaw portion, too, through our search.
But what Schwanier doesn't find is also crucial to his assessment of the case.
The first thing that keyed in on me was lack of clothing. We found absolutely no evidence of that scene other than the body and some skin on it. Somebody brought him here, or somebody probably killed him here.
An autopsy is conducted. Though the coroner's report is inconclusive, investigators are convinced of the worst.
We definitely felt it was a homicide. We had no hard evidence to say how this person was killed. But as investigators, we're leaning towards homicide.
Investigators determine the body has been in the woods at least 6 months. But in all that time, no one matching its height or probable age has been reported missing. Now police in 2 counties have anonymous victims. Their cause of death unknown. Nine weeks later, on March 7th, 1996, just 3 miles from where the bones of John Doe number 2 were found, a motorist pulls off the highway to relieve himself. And the case takes another turn.
John Doe number 3 was found in a very, very similar area as John Doe number 2. This body was mostly intact. Laying on his back, his arms flailed out to his side, totally naked.
There is no question this man was murdered. And Schwanier gets a shocking new clue when he sees that John Doe number 3 has been horribly mutilated.
It was obvious his genitalia had been removed. Insects take the easiest route of penetration to a body. They'll go into any orifice, mouth, eyes. There's a gunshot wound, a stabbing wound. This is where the insects will infiltrate a body. And this is where they were. They were in the groin area.
Authorities try to fathom what kind of deranged killer they're dealing with.
Obviously, when you have genitals removed, that was an identifier that there's definitely some kind of a sexual deviancy involved.
A search of the crime scene soon sheds light on a psychopath's terrifying MO.
There was a ligature mark around the tree at throat level. There was some at hand level, and there was also some about where the ankles and shins would be on the tree. Very obvious when you looked at them as to what happened there. This victim was tied to this tree. Now we have 2 naked, dead men out in the woods. There's definitely foul play involved. Something really bad was going on.
When Rick Hobbs gets wind of the murders in Northport County, his cold case suddenly warms up.
I grabbed my case file and I went up to Northport and sat down with Tom, and we started comparing our cases.
That's a lot different than the other one. Still an adult male.
Now we could see the similarities between not only John Doe number 1 and John Doe number 3, but it also brought in John Doe number 2. When we were looking at one another's crime scene photos, if you didn't know which scene you were looking at, you couldn't tell them apart.
Hobbs and Schwanier revisit the first 2 crime scenes, only 5 miles apart. In both cases, they find the link they're looking for.
We started seeing the striation marks on the trees, and I suspect we have a problem.
The investigators are forced to confront the obvious. They're dealing with a serial killer. When the story breaks in the media, the entire region is gripped in fear.
When we have a death, an unusual death in this area, I mean, it's going to be on the front page.
The community is not used to crimes like this being committed, and there was a lot of worried and nervous citizens out there.
Pressure mounts on authorities to stop a madman before he kills again. Unable to identify their latest victim, police seek another way to move things forward. They turn to profiler Wayne Porter for help in the case. The brutalized state of the corpses convinces Porter that they're dealing with a particularly vicious criminal, a sexual sadist.
A sexual sadist is an individual that would, in fact, do harm to the individual while they are still alive, and that harm many times is to the genitalia.
Wayne, if you can give us a read on that, you know. And
the ligature marks on the trees give Porter an idea of a killer's motivation.
Bondage with sexual sadists is a very common characteristic. You will find bondage magazines in their past history. Bondage is one of the facets of the fantasy. It's part of the gasoline that runs the fantasy. One of the commonalities of sexual sadism is these individuals like to document their crimes. They will videotape, they will take photographs.
To stop a monster in their midst, law enforcement agencies from all over the state band together and create a task force. They take over a vacant store in a shopping mall and centralize operations.
We had upwards of 50 and 60 people working out of there.
They didn't even say action, right? Yeah. Okay, good. There's another one?
So I had myself and then Jim Myers from FDLE, Tom Swarnier from Northport.
No sooner has the task force established itself when Hobbs receives disturbing news.
Sheriff's office received a call early on the morning of April the 17th from a county survey crew.
Yeah, we'll be right there. Okay.
They discovered part of a human body lying back in the woods.
Guys, let's go. Something's up.
For the Hog Trail murder investigators, it seems the woods of Central Florida are full of dead bodies. Only this time, dead men will start telling tales. Three men have been found dead in the Florida Hog Trails, killed by the same deranged sexual sadist. Now police are back investigating John Doe number 4.
We saw something kind of round laying on the ground, and looking closer, it was definitely a human head.
Among the other remains is the victim's decomposed torso. It's this grisly find that provides investigators with their first break.
There was a very noticeable tattoo from the shoulder area. It was a very good clue as far as identifying somebody. Tattoo is just like almost like a fingerprint, no two are alike. I'll use different dyes, different colors, so we felt this will help us identify this individual.
Hobbs walks deeper into the woods in search of more evidence.
Off in the distance, I can see something. As I start getting a little closer, now I can see it's carpet padding. So my first thought is, do I have a homeless guy sleeping in the woods? But the thing that really said, uh-oh, was I could see blood.
Tom, get over here.
Lifted up the carpet padding, and there we had the remains of a white male. And he didn't appear like he had been there very long, maybe 12 hours. He was really fresh, so to speak. We could clearly see the ligature marks on the neck, ligature marks on the arms, around the biceps, and along the calves.
I hate to say it, but this helps.
His cause of death was suffocation, probably most likely from the strangulation via the ligature marks that were discovered around the neck. The removal of the genitals appeared to be post-mortem.
Not only has the serial killer struck again, his spree appears to be escalating. Authorities now have 2 new bodies from which to glean evidence. They begin with the tattoo found on John Doe number 4.
We decided to take that piece of skin and photograph it. The tattoo was released to the news media, and it was on the television stations, and it was printed in the newspapers.
Hobbs' tactic pays off.
Hi, this is Teresa Smith. Is there someone I can talk to about a tattoo in the newspaper?
Once we had John Doe number 4 identified as Kenny Smith from Naples in Collier County, Florida, That gave us a whole new avenue of investigation. We could go and say, well, who knows him? Who hangs out with him? What's he do? Where's he work?
Kenny Smith was basically a street person. He went from shelter to shelter, job to job, did a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, drugs.
Authorities take another look at the first 3 victims, and a pattern emerges.
When the medical examiner examines the body, he can tell a lot about how a person lives by the conditions of the organs and the teeth. And everything indicated that these were people who lived on the street.
Could it be that the killer deliberately targets the down and out in hopes of keeping his victims nameless? Further investigation of Kenny Smith yields no answers. Police now pin their hopes on John Doe number 5.
We took some latent fingerprints from him and ran them through the automated fingerprint identification system. He had some past arrests.
John Doe number 5 is ID'd as Richard Montgomery, also a street person. Hobbs tracks down Montgomery's mother, who happens to have some very interesting information about her son's final hours.
He said something about somebody offering him some money to pose nude. Something about the man driving a Capri, a blue Capri.
She tells police that Montgomery went to meet this man and was never seen again.
The person was selecting transients and panhandlers for one reason, and it's because there's no one to witness the fact that you picked them up.
After more than 2 years of investigation, the task force has an MO and a profile of their killer. What they don't have is a suspect. Now, a man who took a ride with death is about to provide them with one.
Hi there. Can I talk to you for a minute?
Five men of no fixed address are murdered within a 10-mile radius of each other, and police still have no suspect. But when news of the homicides reaches state prison inmate David Payton, he contacts authorities with an astonishing tale.
Mr. Payton, I'm Myers. Why don't you go ahead and tell me your story?
So there's this guy, pulls up to me in a blue car.
Yeah, this will be fun. We'll kick back, have a few cold beers, a little weed.
Sounds good to me, man.
Yeah, hey, you care for some of these? These right here.
Valium. Sweet, man.
Yeah.
He drives out sort of into the woods, almost in the middle of nowhere. Guy offers me more money. He says if he can tie me up, take pictures of me for some men's magazine.
How'd you feel about if we get a little more creative with the photographs?
I agree to it, but I'm feeling a little nervous about this whole situation. He gets the car stuck in a ditch.
Man, it's okay. I'll get it and I'll give us a push. No! No. You stay here. I'll push.
All right, well, I'll drive it then.
Yeah. You drive.
During the course of the time he was in the vehicle, he started looking around and saw a bag that was in the back seat that had items like duct tape, some ropes, a blue tarp, a large type knife.
And with what he had seen inside the vehicle and the way the guy had acted, when he had the opportunity, he was behind the wheel of the car. When they got it free, he took off in the car, leaving the guy out there in the woods.
Payton may have cheated death, but he couldn't outrun the law.
He got the vehicle and went back to Fort Myers, and by this time the drug and the booze was really acting on him, and he actually fell asleep. And by this time, The subject had filled out a stolen vehicle report with the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office. The Fort Myers Police Department found the vehicle, and Mr. Payton was arrested for grand theft auto. And that's what he was serving time on. It was a grand theft auto from the subject's vehicle.
He provided some very specific information, which allowed us to go back through records and get an identity on the person that he said took him out into the woods. That person was found to be a guy by the name of Daniel Conahan.
Police soon locate Conahan and put him under surveillance. A background check proves very revealing.
Upon reviewing his records from the armed services, the Navy, it was determined that he was discharged for trying to commit acts of sodomy on other sailors.
Conahan later moved to Chicago, where authorities tracked down and interview an old roommate.
He actually was able to identify to us what Mr. Conahan had stated as one of his fantasies. And that fantasy is to pick up an individual like a hitchhiker and take him to a wooded area, tie him up, and have sex with him.
Leaving a trail of deviant sexual behavior in his wake, Conahan moves from Chicago back to Punta Gorda.
His parents were elderly and they weren't in the best of health. He moved back to help care for his parents.
Further investigation reveals that upon returning to Florida, Conahan trained as a nurse, which could account for the skillful mutilation of the victims. It looks like police have their man.
He was our key suspect at the time, based on what we had learned.
Now they need hard evidence to nail him.
We started a 24-hour surveillance on him to determine, what his patterns, his travel patterns, daily activity was.
Cameras are mounted on telephone poles outside his residence.
In watching the surveillance video, when Mr. Conahan would bring his backpack out, and he would stop and he would set that backpack on top of that blue car. And then he'd usually stand there and smoke a cigarette.
And we believe that that backpack may contain what we refer to as tools of the trades, very similar to what Mr. Payton had described.
Some people call it a murder kit. I call it a treasure chest. And this treasure chest includes the weapons that he's going to use, the bindings that will be used, any equipment that might be needed in this assault.
Investigators follow the dutiful son as he drives his mother to and from her senior's home. They also track his less wholesome activities.
He'd drive by one of the soup kitchens or drive by one of the homeless shelters, and he was like cruising. He was looking for exactly what we thought. He was looking for a homeless person or somebody who's hanging around the dumpsters or in one of the back alleys. Another term I would use is hunting. It's exactly like watching a shark circle his prey.
Armed with information about the route Conahan travels, authorities make a bold move. They place an undercover officer disguised as a homeless man right in his path.
We put undercover detective Ray Weir out on a corner where he would go by that location, coming back to or from visiting his mother.
Weir mans his post, hoping to lure the target.
Pulling back around. Okay, I know. I see him coming. Back? Oh, coming your way. Fish from here? Yeah.
He's leaving. So he's probably going to head home.
Finally, after weeks on the job, Conahan takes the bait.
He made contact. He stopped his vehicle.
Hi. How are you tonight? Good. Good, good. I'm Dan. Dan Conahan.
Nice to meet you, Dan.
He was eerie to me, and I felt there was something wrong with him. What, I didn't know.
Listen, if you're looking for work, I could probably help you out.
Yeah?
Well, listen, it'd be, well, basically, it's
At that point in time, he said something to the effect that, well, there'd be some progressive bondage shots. I don't know if you're into that. And again, I told him, well, the money talks. You got the cash. I need it. We'll try it, whatever it takes.
It's easy money.
Sure. Yeah? All right. Come on in.
A cop drives into the Hog Trails with suspected serial killer Daniel Conahan. Will he make it out alive? Five corpses have been mutilated and abandoned in the Florida woods. After 2.5 years of dead ends, police have zeroed in on suspect Daniel Conahan. Now, Conahan has another victim in his car, but doesn't know it's undercover cop Ray Weir.
I told him I was staying out back in the woods. I told him to come out to my camp. I drove all the way out there, parked it, he parked his car, walked up, I had a couple chairs set up, and he sat down and we started talking.
So when are we going to take these pictures you were talking about? I don't know. It sounds kind of fun.
Could be.
Conahan is also unaware that this location has been staked out by police.
We had SWAT concealed in the woods.
He started getting a little nervous, and he was with that backpack. So they were watching that.
I'd hate for my friends to find out about this. You know, but I gotta admit, I could sure use that money. It's not gonna hurt or anything, is it? I gotta go. Where you going?
I can't say why he called it off. I believe it's because he wasn't in control. He wasn't in his element.
Authorities missed their best chance so far to catch Conahan red-handed, and they're running out of options. Surveillance of this magnitude is too costly to sustain for long. Time for a new direction.
Mr. Conahan's been offering money. So we get his financial records. We get his bank statements. We get his credit card records. Now we started seeing a series of purchases of particular items: rope, tape, tarps, film, knives, pliers, and cameras. And there seem to be intervals on these purchases.
Intervals that coincide with the timelines of some of the murders. Finally, police have the compelling connection they need to execute a search warrant on Conahan's home.
First we photograph, then we make a sketch of the area. If we're going to do vacuum sweepings, which in this case we did, that would be one of the first things we would do.
We did see a backpack and found a backpack we thought was significant that matched some of the description of what we had seen during surveillance when he was coming to and from his vehicle. A lot of times he would have this backpack.
The murder kit they hope to find is not in the backpack, but a number of suspicious objects are found in the home.
We did find a knife, we did find some rope, we did find some Polaroid pictures and film. We found the components, but they weren't in his bag.
Meanwhile, police intercept Conahan and bring him to a second location for questioning.
Hello. Hi, how you doing? Well, I've been better. Yeah. I'm Special Agent Porter from the governor's office.
Do you recognize this man? I've never seen that man before in my life. You're quite sure about that, sir? Oh. Take a close look. Oh. Well, I just told you I've never seen him before. You have a past record, a history of a molestation back in Chicago. Can you explain that? Well, as a matter of fact, I can explain that. That involves a misunderstanding within an existing relationship, and
he was asked if he did the crime, if he was there, if he knew the victims. He was always on guard during the interview, very evasive in his answers. Have you ever participated in bondage?
No. I've looked at magazines, I've seen some movies, I have never tied anybody out. There you have my records.
Porter continues to press Conahan while the search team descends on his blue Mercury Capri.
It had a paint job that was peeling. We took paint samplings from the chips and big scrapings from the paint.
There was fibers found from his house and his car.
Fibers that may be transferable to our victims.
Your picture is going to be plastered over the paper. Now, what do you think is going to happen with all of the people you may have come in contact with when they call in and they say, yeah, we went out to the woods. He said he had a fantasy. Yeah, he took my photograph. If we get something like that, it won't look good. It won't be good.
I'm under arrest. Now, Mr. Conahan, you're free to go.
So I'm free to go.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
He was pleasant, cold, and calculating. The interview did not seem to impress him very much.
The search of Conahan's home and vehicle yields several items of interest, including unusual rope fibers police hope will match those recovered from the crime scenes.
We did not find any evidence that would clearly identify him as a person responsible for our crimes.
In this high-stakes game of cat and mouse, the mouse appears to be winning. Hobbs sends out a police bulletin to all jurisdictions in Central Florida, describing the murders and asking for any information that may help his case. The bulletin catches the attention of Officer Pedro Soto.
I'm in awe, I'm in shock, I'm looking at it, I'm going like, oh my God.
Soto immediately contacts the Charlotte County Sheriff.
And I said, you know, this is amazing. I had a crime scene just like this 2 years ago. You guys know about it?
And I told him, I said, well, I'd sent out teletypes and phone calls. Anybody that had any similar deaths, give me a call. He says, oh, our guy didn't die, he lived. I went, what?
Officer Soto tells Hobbs of the time he was called to assist an assault victim who showed up at a local hospital.
And he had obvious ligature marks around his neck, his chest, and his arms and legs.
The victim, Stanley Burden, told Soto the chilling story of a man in a blue capri.
The individual asked him if he could take naked photographs of him tied to a tree for $200.
Yeah,
Mr. Burden agreed and went with the individual to the wooded area.
This will be good. What are you doing? This will be good right here. Let's just wait. Just wait.
And the individual then attempted to sodomize him. Mr. Burden stated that he resisted.
Stop it! Stop!
At which time the individual got angry at him.
Die, you son of a bitch! Die!
An approaching car scared the assailant off, leaving Burden for dead, tied to a tree in the middle of nowhere.
He threw down a pair of pliers. Individual got into his van and he drove away. Mr. Burden then was able to get loose, reach for the pliers, cut himself loose.
Burden ran out to the highway and flagged a ride to the hospital. He was never able to give a comprehensive description of his assailant.
There really weren't many avenues we could have followed. In terms of investigating the case, that's as far as we could have gone.
With nothing more to go on, the unsolved crime went cold, was filed and forgotten.
So given this new information from Detective Soto, he provided us with copies of the pictures and a copy of the police report and gave us information on the victim in that case, which turned out to be Stanley Burden. We did a background on him to find out where he was, and he was incarcerated in Columbus, Ohio. He was provided a photo lineup of Daniel Conahan in the Correctional Institute where I interviewed him, and he immediately picked him out without any hesitation whatsoever. He said, that is the subject that did this to me. It's like getting somebody off the autopsy table and telling you what happened to him. That's exactly what this guy was. He was somebody that should have been killed. He should have been laying in the woods with the bugs eating him, and here he was sitting there telling us exactly what happened to him and how he got away from this guy.
Daniel Conahan, you have the right to remain silent.
On July 3rd, 1996, Daniel Conahan is arrested for the attempted murder of Stanley Burden.
Do you understand these rights as they've been read to you?
Yes.
And there was no surprise on his face when myself and Jim Myers walked in, and I told him he was under arrest. And he just got in the car and away we went.
Police have finally caught their killer, but there's no guarantee they can bring him to justice. After 31 months of intense statewide investigation, police have arrested Daniel Conahan for crimes against Stanley Burton.
We had a positive ID, we had a good statement, we had the evidence from the crime scene, and ended up securing an arrest warrant for Mr. Conahan, attempted murder, sexual battery, and kidnapping.
But with 5 men dead, investigators are determined to nail Conahan for full-blown homicide. Taking one last look at the case forensics, they re-examine hair combings from Richard Montgomery's body and find something extraordinary.
There appeared to be a paint chip, a small piece of paint chip that was in his pubic hair area, remaining pubic hair area on his body. That was sent off along with the paint chips that we obtained from the Mercury Capri to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Crime Laboratory for analysis. See if that was a match. From that sample taken from the pubic area of Mr. Montgomery was that matched in all characteristics the paint standard provided from the Mercury Capri.
This final forensic piece of the puzzle allows prosecutors to add a new charge against Conahan, the first-degree murder of Richard Montgomery. In court, Conahan vigorously insists he's innocent, claiming that he's being railroaded simply because he's gay. The prosecution's evidence accumulates quickly.
The area was quite densely wooded, a mixture of scrub brush
found
and
the badly decomposed body of an adult male. Things that made him very nervous, some rope, tarp, I believe a hunting knife that he mentioned. And as Mr. Conahan got...
The idea of a sexual sadist is one who rapes...
And finally, for good measure, prosecutors bring out their smoking gun.
Mr. Burton, would you please show the courtroom your neck?
August 17th, 1999. After just 25 minutes of deliberation, Judge William Blackwell finds Daniel Conahan guilty of kidnapping and first-degree murder. He's sentenced to die. To this day, Conahan insists he's innocent. But police are satisfied they've got the right man. None of the photographs he's believed to have taken of his victims have ever been found.
You know, it's my opinion that Daniel Conahan doesn't have a guilt feeling in his whole body. There is no remorse. None has ever been shown that I'm aware of. This is a man that enjoyed the pain, the suffering, and the death of other individuals, human beings. Why he did this, I don't know if we'll ever know.
And as Conahan sits on death row, awaiting his fate, authorities still wonder how many more victims are yet to be found along the hog trails of Charlotte County.